All good. All right. So, welcome to this morning's movement class. I have a couple of props set up. We have 2 blocks and a blanket. And what I'd like you to do is, first things first, before we even get started, just go ahead and find a nice solid stance. So, hips over heels, belly kind of pulled in, shoulders rolled back. And we're just going to start to kind of bend each knee left and right. Just a little bit of movement here, like you're dancing kind of. So if you're feeling a little bit like you need to move, this is the prime time to do that. We're going to do a little movement, move down to the ground, and then move through a nice sort of activating flow today, feeling a little bit more energetic than usual. So just continue to kind of tap the heels left and right, or just kind of shifting the weight back and forth. And if you'd like, go ahead and step your feet a little bit wider. I'm staying off my mat just because I'm going to move to the mat in a second, but I want to get a little space. So just continue to bend into the left and right knee, just moving to the right, moving to the left, shifting the weight, shifting the hips, pressing energy down. And if you'd like to get your hands and your arms involved, just kind of shaking out a little bit of that energy. If you've got some stuff going on in your life, if you're activated, if you're feeling like I've got 10,000 things, my mind's in 10,000 directions, we're going to kind of ride that horse in that direction. So however you want to move right now, like you're listening to some kind of music, it may feel a little funny. That's okay. You're by yourself. Nobody's watching. It's all good. You can snap your fingers. You can tap your heels. This is like a little dance class this morning. So just shake it out. And then come into stillness. And what I'd like you to do is just start to shake your legs and shake your body, shake your arms, shake your shoulders, maybe shake your head, shake your hands. Take a deep breath in and let it out. We'll do that again. Take a deep breath in, let it out, shake, 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 shake. One more time. Take a deep breath in and let it out, and then come to stillness. Place one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. And just notice what it feels like to come into stillness and steadiness in this moment. Maybe your breath has come up, maybe your heart rate has risen. But just notice what's going on for you. You may still feel a little bit of energy movement, like you want to still move and kind of vibe, right? That's all good. We are going to move. So if you'd like to keep that blanket where it is, you can. We're going to come around onto all fours. And we're just going to start with some easy, nice, simple cat-cow. So rounding the spine, letting the head drop, and then letting the belly hang low, lifting the head, lifting the tail. So just kind of doing a little wave-like movement here, maybe closing the eyes, maybe going inside just to notice where you want to hang out, what you want to do, if you want to shift the hips left and right. Don't worry, we'll get into that space in a moment, but just kind of be fluid with it, be soft with it. When you're in a state where you are kind of sped up, right? When you feel like you've got a million things to do and not enough time and you're pulled in 12 different directions, it can be really beneficial to kind of try and slow down, but also pay attention to that sort of speediness, that sense that you want to keep going and going and going. It's kind of like observing yourself when you've had a lot of caffeine. If all of a sudden you're like, wow, why am I racing? And once you notice it, you try to kind of slow it down. So whatever kind of cat-cow movements here are working for you, go ahead and stick with those. And for me, I'm starting to move my chest forward and back, just kind of moving into the low back, rounding as I come forward, lifting my head, lifting my tail as I sink my hips back. So it's kind of a wave movement, if you will. It feels pretty good. Kind of opening up the low back and just allowing energy to move. A lot of times when we are feeling super activated or super scattered, we just need to disperse a little energy and let the body kind of readjust to the new normal. And this can help just kind of refocus our minds. So once you've done those cat-cows, go ahead and take your knees wide, big toes to touch. And what I'd like you to do is walk your hands off to the left side of your mat at about, say, I don't know, 1 o'clock. And you're going to sink your hips back towards your heels. And then take that right hand and stack it on top of your left. Interlace those fingers and see if you can find some heavier weight or draw that right hip down towards your heel. So nice big side body opener. Take a couple deep breaths. See if you can really sink that right hip down. And then go ahead and come back through center. And we're going to just walk our hands off to the right side. And first, just take your hands off to the right side at about 11 o'clock. And then you're going to take that left hand and stack it on top of the right, interlace those fingers, and then see if you can tug back, like you're tugging back from the back pocket on your left side, your left hip pocket. Take a couple breaths. Feel that breath move into that left lung. And really open it up. And then go ahead and walk back through center. Come back up to all fours. And I'm just going to go ahead and get knees under shoulders, hands under knees under hips, hands under shoulders. And you're just going to ground down into your left knee. From here, you're going to pick up your right knee and just cross it over behind your left. Let your toes come down to touch. And then just start to move your hips back and forward. So you're staying on your hands. You're just kind of changing the shape of moving into sort of a cat-cow position, or maybe even a child's pose here. You're just moving your hips forward and back, kind of opening into the outer hip on that left side. Maybe noticing an IT band stretch here. And then we're going to come back to center. Plant those knees under your hips. Find that stable footing underneath your hands. And then you're going to just lift up your left knee, cross it over behind your right calf. And then you can place those toes down on the mat and just start to slide the hips forward and back like you did on the first side. If your feet come apart, that's totally okay. Just kind of giving a little dynamic movement into the hips to stretch. You can move with your breath. You can modify your breath to match your movement. There's really no kind of wrong way to do this. And then go ahead and come back to center. From here, find that stable tabletop position. You're going to take that left foot back like you're standing on the wall behind you, lifting it up so heel, hip, and head are all in one straight line. And then on your exhale, go ahead, bend your knee. Step that left foot outside the left hand. And just for a moment here, plant both hands down on the mat and press down into the mat. At the same time, press down into the sole of your foot. Now for me, because of sort of my body mechanics, this feels like a deep stretch into the front back of my left leg. I have some tight hamstrings going on, so from here I'm just going to start to shift my hips forward and back. Just very little, very slight here. I'm keeping the sole of my left foot on the mat. Just, again, working into the back of that hamstring, the outer hip, the front of the foot, the top of the foot. If your toes come up off the mat, that's totally okay. And you may start to want to move your hips back a little bit further. Your hands can come up off the mat if that feels good. I'm keeping mine planted right now because I want to feel that grounding sensation. And just continue to move forward and back and forward and back. And as you move forward and back, see if you can feel that sense of moving energy towards the midline. So not so much hugging, not so much like holding, but just drawing the energy in from your outer hip in towards your belly, in towards your core. We'll do 2 more of those. And then come back to all fours. And just for a moment, notice any sensation difference from left to right. And then we're going to switch to the other leg. So knees under hips, hands under shoulders. Take your right leg back. Toes point towards the ground, standing on the back wall. Really activate through that back leg. See if you can get head, hips, shoulders, and foot into the same line. And then on your next exhale, go ahead and just bend that right knee and take it to the right foot to the outside of your right hand. And here, once again, just take a pause. And as you pause, press down into your hands actively and press down into the sole of your foot. You may notice that your heart lifts slightly. You may notice that your back kind of flattens out. So if I release my hold, I'm much more round. But if I press, my head lifts, my back's a little bit straighter. That midline is activated. And then from here, you're just going to start to shift the hips back and shift the hips forward. And you can go as far back or as far forward as you like. I wouldn't recommend going out past the front of your toes with your right knee, but if that feels like something you need, if you want to stretch into the front of that left hip flexor, you can go ahead and do that. But here, just shifting the hips back and forward. Just continuing to kind of wake up the backs of the legs. Move a little blood, move a little energy. I don't know about you guys, but I've had a busy week and I've still got a lot more to go. So moving this energy this way feels pretty good. Being able to kind of catalyze it into something else is kind of what I'm loving right now. So we'll do 2 more of these, forward and back. And then go ahead and come back to all fours. Take a moment here. Just notice how you feel. Notice if there's any sensation. Notice if there's any kind of drawing to the midline, this sense of finding a center. And then from here, just rock back. Slide that blanket out from underneath your knees. Place it off to the left or right. We will come back to that. And we're going to come into our first downward dog. So tuck your toes, lift your hips, press them up and back, and just come into your first downward dog. And here, notice the shift. Notice that maybe all that energy that you came in with, all that sort of pent up, I gotta move, has slowed down. And here, if you'd like, you can shift your hips left to right. Just kind of let the heels hang heavy towards the earth. Make sure you're not locking out your knees, but just allow your weight to shift. Take a couple breaths. Keep shifting your weight. And then come back to some sense of stableness and sense of stillness. And on your next inhale, go ahead and lift your left foot towards the sky. And exhale, you're going to bend your left knee, plant that left foot in between your hands at the top of your mat. You'll notice I have my blocks back at the top of my mat, and they're on their highest setting. Go ahead and take those blocks underneath your hands. So we're in a lifted lunge. And from here, what I'd like you to do is spin down that right heel so that you're coming into sort of a warrior 2 stance. So that front heel will bisect that back foot at about halfway. You can spin on up and we'll find that warrior 2. So hands reach in opposite directions. Palms for right now are facing down. See if you can bend into that front knee. Take a deep breath here and really find your footing. And as you extend your arms out, Imagine drawing energy in towards your midline and feel the crown of your head reach towards the sky. And then from here, you're going to bend that left elbow, place it on that left knee. Maybe take your right hand to your right hip. And here, all I want you to do is bend that back knee. So if you need to rotate your ankle a little bit to bend and straighten that back knee, feel free to do that. So we're just bending and straightening the right knee, allowing that left knee to slide forward and back. And if you'd like, you can add on here, much like we did at the beginning of class. As you bend your knee, you can draw the elbow back. And as you come forward, reach the arm up next to the ear. So elbow back, arm up next to the ear. And it might be a really small movement. For me, it's not a very big movement, but it feels really good. It's dynamic, it's moving. I'm starting to get a little warm. Whoop. If you wobble, it's all good. We'll do 2 more. And then what I'd like you to do is spin your hands back down to that block. Come up on the ball mound of your back foot. And you're going to walk those blocks off to the side of your mat. Frame your front foot. Step back. We're going to find a momentary high plank here. See if you can breathe into this high plank. And then exhale, lower down to your knees, untuck your toes, and you're going to come on down to your belly. Take a breath here. Maybe walk your blocks up towards the top of your mat so they're not in your way. And go ahead and take your fingertips off the mat, elbows point towards the sky. Separate your feet, and you're just going to lift your chest just a little bit here. You can come up to straight arms if that feels good, or for me, keeping my arms a little bent so I'm a little bit more fluid. Take an inhale here, and then exhale, release. And we're going to do that one more time. So inhale to lift, and here, once you've lifted, what I'd like you to do is start to drop that left shoulder, gaze under your right, and then lift that shoulder and gaze to the opposite side. So you're moving dynamically here through a Cobra, using your peripheral vision to orient yourself to the room that you're working in, engaging through the core, lifting through the back body, and continuing just to move that energy. We'll do 2 more, 1 on each side. So I'm looking under my left and then back under my right. And then come back to center just for a second and stack your hands. Let your forehead rest. Let your shoulders drop down from your ears. Take a deep breath. And then from here, go ahead, plant your hands, tuck your toes, lift your hips, press up and back, downward facing dog. Once again, just letting some movement come into the body, shifting the hips left and right, maybe shaking out the head. Notice how the energy has changed once again. Maybe you're feeling a little bit stiller, a little bit quieter. Maybe you find stillness in your downward facing dog a little bit sooner. Take a deep breath in and a sigh out. And then when you're ready, ground down into your left foot, lift your right. And on your exhale, you're going to draw that right foot in between your hands at the top of your mat. Grab those blocks if you've walked them off in front of you and just place them on their highest setting underneath your hands. And here we're up on the back ball mound of the big toe, and we're just pressing down into the palms, pressing down into the feet. From here, spin that back heel down so that your toes come to the long side of the edge, your front toes faced forward, and we're going to come up into a warrior 2. You can make whatever kind of adjustments in your feet, adjustments in your space. Reach the arms out, both directions. Sink a little bit deeper into that front leg. See if you can simultaneously reach out and feel that drawing to the midline, that lift. Take a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, go ahead and take that right hand, right elbow down to that thigh. Take your left hand and you're going to place it on your hip. And here we're just going to bend and straighten that back knee. So it's a little bit of a weird movement. Your chest will move forward and back. Totally cool, totally okay. Just a little dynamic movement to kind of get into the legs. And you'll notice, I'm actually supporting myself on my elbow here. Totally okay. Right now we're really focused on grounding down into the legs. And then we're going to add on the arms. So as you come back, you'll bend your elbow. And as you come forward, reach the arm up over next to the ear. Back and forward and back and forward. 2 more. Back and forward and back and forward. And then go ahead, spin down, hands come back to those blocks. You can come up on the back ball mound of the big toe and then go ahead and move those blocks off to the side. Plant your hands, step back, find that high plank once again. Take a couple of deep inhales and a couple of deep exhales. Go ahead and drop to your knees and then lower your chest to the mat. If your blocks are off to the side like mine are and you need to move them, go ahead and move them. Separate your feet. Take your fingertips off the edges of the mat. Point your elbows towards the sky. On your next inhale, go ahead and just lift up. Maybe you go a little bit higher. Maybe your elbows come to or towards straight. And as you lift up, see if you can start to just kind of turn your head left and right. Keep your eyes open and just take in the space around you. And then exhale, come back down. And we're going to move into that shoulder dipping sort of dynamic Cobra. So here, you're going to press yourself up, dip your left shoulder, gaze under your right arm. Come back through center, dip your right shoulder, gaze under your left. So just moving with your breath, moving left and right, gazing under each arm. This is one of my favorite moves for when my shoulders are really getting after me. And the last week or so, they've been really unhappy. I've been spending far too much time on the computer. So, getting a lot of that like mouse arm thing going on. We will do 2 more, 1 on each side. And then come back to center. You can stack your hands or stack your fists, let your forehead rest. Just for a moment, let the shoulders drop. Take a few breaths. And we're going to come back down onto our backs. And just take a moment here. Walk your feet in towards your pelvis. Knees are pointed towards the sky. You're going to lift your hips and slide them over to the right side of your mat. And then drop your knees over to the left. That blanket is there if you want to place it underneath your knees. You can get a little bit of a different sensation. If you'd like to place it between your knees, you can also do that. But here I'm just going to stay without the blanket. I'm going to take my arms out to a T and see if I can maybe stack my knees a little bit better and drop my right shoulder down towards the mat, keeping my gaze towards the ceiling. And I'm breathing into that right rib cage, that right lung. take 2 more breaths here. And then go ahead and draw your knees back up towards the sky. Come back to center. Just for a moment, notice that sensation of midline drawing. So as you come back into a neutral position, notice how the energy comes back in. Ground down through your feet, lift your hips. I'm going to slide them over to the left and then drop your knees over to the right. And again, you can make whatever adjustments you need using that blanket if you need it underneath either the bottom leg or in between the thighs as a support. I'm going to take my arms out to a T and see if I can find a little heaviness in my left shoulder blade. At the same time, I'm finding a little heaviness in my left thigh, my left leg, so that there's a deep twist, a deep midline twist happening here. Take a couple breaths, breathe into that left lung, that left rib cage. I really feel this opening up through the front of my pec on my left side. Take a few more breaths here. And then when you're ready, gently roll back over to your back. Knees come towards the sky. Come back to center just for a second. Maybe take your hands back to your body like you did in the beginning of class. I have one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly. And just notice what that sense of drawing in, of finding steadiness and stableness at the same time being mutable and changeable. Gently draw your knees into your chest. Take a little squeeze, maybe a little rock left to right. Release the low back. And then when you're ready, just go ahead and extend your legs out long. Take up space on your mat. Find a nice, easy, restful Shavasana. Find a shape that feels supportive to you. So if you have your blanket roll nearby, you can always grab that and place it underneath your knees or underneath your head. And here, just allow your body to rest down. Allow everything to settle. Allow the earth to rise up to meet you and hold you where you are. And as you rest, just notice that sense of drawing in towards your midline, of sort of drawing your senses in, drawing sound in. And just noticing what that ebb and flow of energy is like through your midline. Allow your breath to settle and ease and soften any kind of holding that you may be doing in this moment. And then whenever you're ready, begin to just slowly deepen your breath. You can invite movement back into your system, wiggling your fingers, maybe your toes, maybe just rolling your head from one side to the other. And on your next inhale, take a nice long good morning stretch, allowing your body to yawn or sigh, and roll over to your left or right side. For a moment, let the earth hold you in this pose, and then gently roll your shoulders more towards the earth. Press down to sit up and find an easy seat, whatever shape that might be for you today. And once you find that easy seat, maybe close your eyes or lower your gaze. And once again, find that nice, tall spine, that sense of drawing to the midline, that sense of spaciousness, but also softness through the center of the body, almost like a willow tree that can be kind of moved by the wind, but also very strong and stable. And gently take your hands to heart center, press your palms against one another. Maybe let your thumbs rest against your heart and bow your head towards your chest. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.